Color puncture and crystals and everything we are doing here is all about experience. It's all about how this particular tool, this particular therapeutic media affects you. This is how you react. What is true for you, what is right for you, might be totally wrong for somebody else. But this is why we have general guidelines, and this is why we start with color puncture 30 seconds per point or 20 seconds all spirit and grace, and we start with crystals 2 minutes. But then it always says, in any manual, if you read carefully, says 2 minutes, 30 seconds, or until every action, because as soon as a reaction happens, we need to withdraw whatever we're doing, the crystal, color puncture, whatever it is, and we really need to let the body to do the rest. Always with the new media, I start as it is indicated, but then I increase the timing. We all have different individual timing we need with crystals. But I would always encourage you to start really, really small, because you don't know how you're going to react to crystal. And you don't want to go too much into reactions. This will be counterproductive. Because as soon as your body gives you something, there is some body felt sense, there is some image, there is some emotion, some memory, some sensation, sense of warmth very often, vague discomfort, which is not bad, it's just a discomfort. Something is happening. It's almost like you found something and you don't know what this is. This kind of discomforts and you want to go and explore. You can start with really small timing and see at which point you react, and then you can increase the timing. But maybe you are the person who only ever will need 2 minutes for each crystal, or 5 minutes for each crystal, or 10 minutes for each crystal. It depends. No matter how wonderful our therapist could be, or no matter how educated we are in what we are doing, if we are doing it for ourselves, our body has this deep wisdom which we cannot comprehend, because we never know what was important for the body, which part of our experience in this body was important. Because very often people say, oh, this is this dramatic event that really shaped me, or there was a happy childhood and I really am who I am because of this happy childhood. But very often when I work with people, what we find is that it's very often this sort of long and grey period of time which people were either in some kind of not a power position, they couldn't make a decision, they were in power but they couldn't make a decision, or they made a decision but they didn't make a commitment, or there was a protracted period of post-viral situation when we had a virus of some kind, and then our reaction, because it was suppressed or it wasn't managed correctly, or the virus was too strong, the situation was too strong in recalculation of our body resources, then we have this protracted tail of the disease, and we're really not quite ourselves. So talk of long COVID, precisely with long COVID, so this is a good thing about COVID, the mainstream observations, we all becoming more aware of this post-viral tail of the disease. But it's not just COVID. COVID is just an extreme example because it's so strong, but you can have it with flu, you can have it with any other virus. It depends. It depends on combination of strength of the virus and your resources at the time. This period of time can really shape you. I met many people who were living in poverty, either real or imaginary, for several years. And they really were traumatized by it. For some people, they live below official poverty line for their entire lives, and they're totally happy because they have a rich internal life, they have a rich family life. They spend a lot of time together with family and friends, they spend a lot of time in nature, and they're really, really rich. They're really time rich. So they don't consider themselves deprived. But there are people, especially people with family expectations from cultures where money and status were really, really important. So for them, this period when they couldn't quite make it, meaning they were not enough as individuals. Even so, very often these things connected again with illness, with immigration, with divorce, with objective situation, which affected them to the point that it was difficult for them to make money. But this period really affected them because they felt deprived. And long after it finished, they had fears and they had guilt about it. So the bottom line is we never know what shapes us in childhood or what is still shaping us now. And this is only can come up when you do deep work with therapies, with Colourpuncture, with crystal, with dream work, with journaling, with those journaling prompts, with deep questions to the soul. And only then you will see what was really important. which probably you didn't detect. And very often, again, what is happening when we are in the middle of a very difficult situation, all we do is we're trying to cope, we're trying to make it work, we're trying to get ourselves out of the situation. In the process, we can really, really suffer. But our focus is not on acknowledging of our suffering and saying to ourselves, well, really, this is a hard time for me. This year, this month, this week is a really, really hard time for me. And things will get better, I'm sure. It's just this is a hard time. And actually, I am doing great. No, instead of this, we are trying to man up or woman up and trying to really make it work. We're trying to function. We're trying to care for people and for the situation, for the job. We don't acknowledge how difficult it is for us until this moment of time has passed. And then we look back 20 years back, 10 years back, 5 years back, and we're thinking, oh my God, how did I cope back then? Because the pain and the suffering and all this fear and all this uncertainty that you experience then is still locked because we never acknowledged it then. Many things we can discover when we do this type of work. So coming back to the question of timing, do experiment. Experiment, start with a timing which is indicated 20 seconds soul spirit, 20 seconds gray colors, 30 seconds to 60 seconds to 1 minute spectral colors. With element crystals, with activator, with polarity crystal, with all the crystals, you can start with 2 minutes, you can start with 5 minutes.